Optimization Committee. We are going to start by approving the minutes from July 15th, 2024. Just need a motion.
Motion to approve? Yeah.
Second.
Okay, so we're going to have to do a roll call vote because we do have a member joining remotely. So, Mr. Liberty?
Aye.
Mr. Walsh?
Aye.
Mr. Pitney?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Item number 3 is to review and act to approve bills, schedules, and warrants. So we do have 2 bills here. One is for the Vertex Company LLC OPM services for June 2024 in the amount of $11,648. The second is also from the Vertex Companies LLC for OPM services for July 2024 in the amount of $23,295. So I'll take a motion to approve those.
I make a motion to
Second.
approve.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Liberty?
Aye.
Mr. Walsh?
Aye.
Mr. Pitney?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Item number 4 is an update from Helene Carl Architects. So we will turn it over to our architects for that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Mike, I'll let you pull that up now. Are we up? I don't see it on the screen.
They said it was on.
Now you're not gonna see Patrick, though.
That's okay.
Sorry, Patrick.
We're going to trade Patrick in for the presentation.
Please.
So, we started the project about a month ago. We submitted our proposal and stuff, and we're working through. And so we're going through the first steps. So what tonight I'll go over is I'll show you where we are and what tasks we've completed, what assessments we've made, and then we'll be, presenting 2 concepts to you as well. Next slide, Mike. Okay, as far as tasks go, we've performed the initial programming sessions with the various users groups and drafted the program, and you'll see a very quick highlight of that. Not in any detail. We do have a more detailed spreadsheet, but we just wanted to give you a highlight of where we are with that. The entire design team, all the engineers and everything went out last week to do the field assessments and survey of the existing highway building. We've just assumed, as it's been in discussions all this time, the 1950s water and sewer building will be demolished as part of this project, and then the goal was to evaluate the status of the 1977 highway garage. And then we will, starting to prepare our findings and our concepts. Things that we will have to do is tomorrow we will be meeting with the town engineer to review the wetlands. There is an area that's clearly designated as wetlands. There's another area in there that looks like a retention basin or something that's kind of morphed into a wetlands. So that's why we're going to be working with the engineer to do that preliminary determination. I know that Ecotech has also been a submittal that Vertex has requested, so that if we do need to do a more thorough delineation of that for this project, we can get that going on board as well. Then we are going to recommend that we schedule borings. Now, whether the borings will be done by the 9th or not, that depends on how far we get tonight on an approval on a concept. The reason we're recommending that is the 1977 existing highway building seems to be in good shape. There's no differential settlement or anything like that. So we're assuming that it is on good ground and everything. However, when we did the evaluation of the salt storage shed, there appears to be about 12 feet of fill sitting on organics and everything for that building. That is why we would recommend, in this case, once we decide in the direction that the project is going, that we should do a preliminary borings on there. There may have to be subsequent ones as, once we get further into design, because the last thing we want to do is tell you that we can put the building on standard spread footings, only to find out we have to remove 12 feet of, unsuitable materials and or go with some type of piles or something, because clearly that will have an impact on the cost of the project. So that will be one of the tasks we will do, depending on what direction we get tonight. We will be following up with the various groups to do the program analysis and make sure that we've, gotten all their requirements. We will then start preparing the renderings and the cost estimate for this, and with the goal to have this all done by the 10th of September, so we can do any final changes and stuff, and then I know you're going to town meeting in November. So that's kind of the task and the activities and where we stand. So right now, we feel comfortable, we're in a good place. Obviously, like everybody else, we'd love to have an extra month or two, but that's not happening. So we're moving right along. Next slide, please, Mike. Okay, so this is a very, very crude, high-level evaluation of the various divisions that we, met with, had discussions, we visited their site, we counted desks, we counted personnel, we counted vehicles. I do want to stress that these numbers that you're seeing now include the future hires that people have told us they were coming on. So, Highway's saying they're looking to hire like 3 more, techs over the next 5 years or something. The garage said that they would like to get a couple more. So what we've done is we've built this in. The numbers that most of the hires that they're talking about will have little or no impact on the actual physical space, because like a tech or something, or they may be field personnel, they just need a place for their truck and they will move on. I think in the office area, probably one of the biggest growths would be the solid waste and recycling program, because right now there's only one person working that. She would like to get some additional help. And if they do go as far as they are talking about the recycling program, there may be up to 4 people on that. Yes?
Question. Does you separate the office people from the field people, per se? So the staff is 77, but is it breaking out with X amount for office space? And
Oh, yeah, so that's the more detailed program we have. I figured you didn't want to see 3 pages of spreadsheets with the itemized things. So yes, like for example, like the highway division, that includes the managers and the superintendents and stuff, but then it includes all the drivers and the techs and everything in it.
Okay.
So we just lumped that together just to kind of get a personnel count overall for the building. But yes, we do have this broken out in detail in a spreadsheet.
so when you say 77, could you break it out into the 2 different categories so we got an understanding of, okay, there's going to be X amount of space for office people and Y amount of space for the other people,
Yes, and we
all the
will.
other workers? That's later on?
No, yeah, that's later on, and,
Okay.
and what you will also see tonight when we do the proposal, that based on what we talked about with all the user groups, is the managers would actually like to be very close to their personnel, or actually sitting in their, the same office with them and stuff. So for example, like Nick at the highway garage, he currently has 2 offices. He has one office here in Town Hall, and he has one office down at the highway department. And so he wants to work with his crews. Same thing with water and sewer. They're not looking to be separated. They would like to be in the thick of things with their personnel. So when we did the layout for the concept tonight, you will see that they have a manager's office, but it's sitting right in the same proximity as the inspectors and everybody else. And then you'll see the other layout for the what you'd call more office personnel. So that's why I kind of hesitated a little. We're not counting office people, but when a manager tells me he wants to be with his crews and everything, technically that, because they may sit as an office person now, but technically they'll be moving into their area. So, but you'll see that breakdown further. And then again, as far as the fleet and everything, most of the divisions said that their fleets are pretty stable. I mean, they're going to be picking up a vehicle here or there, replacing vehicles and stuff. But we didn't see a big swing in the count on the vehicles. And one of the things is, and again, I just lumped all the vehicles together. Some of those vehicles will be going outside, so it's not like we're building a parking space inside for each of those. But I just wanted to give you kind of an order of magnitude of where we stand on this, so that when you see the parking configurations and stuff that we did, you'll understand why we have as much parking, because everybody drives their private vehicles to the job site, to the site. They switch out and get into a vehicle and stuff, and so you will need all this parking, and there's no problem, the site's plenty big enough to accommodate all of that. So that's the whole purpose of this, was just to give you an order of magnitude. Yes, when in the final report, you'll see an itemized breakdown of who gets a cubicle, who gets a private office, and the support spaces that they have. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are just, again, you'll get the full assessment report in gory detail, and you'll have all this. I just wanted to highlight the items that we are going to. So the building was designed in 1976. looks like from the town engineering department, and so we're assuming it was constructed in 1976, 77. That's why I call it the 1977 building. It's about 31,000 square feet, 240 feet long, 128 feet wide. It's steel frame, 18 feet high, cast in place concrete, and a 5-inch slab. Now, the only reason I bring out the issue about a 5-inch slab, because typically what we would do in a highway garage is put at least an 8-inch slab in there. Okay. Good news is the slab's in great condition. Bad news is, as we get a little further along, you'll see in the plumbing assessment, the floor drains and everything are clogged. So there's the advantages and disadvantages. But overall, that's a description of the building. So now I'm going to go through the various disciplines and give you the highlights on that. One of the big concerns in the civil is to address the wetlands delineation. You'll see on the plan there is an area that's clearly delineated as a wetlands, but there's also a culvert and everything that has sprouted cattails and everything. Now, if it sits right where the building is sitting, okay? If we have to replicate that, that would be a relatively easy thing, because we're only probably talking about 1,000 square feet, and you can replicate up to about 5,000 square feet of wetlands. We're not even sure it's a wetlands per se, and how people are going to interpret that. So that is why we're meeting with the town engineer, and if we need to, we'll go further and hire a consultant to do additional assessments of that. The site, because we're disturbing so much of it, we will have to do a whole site storm drainage system for that to keep the water on. One of the interesting things that came up about the fuel island, about 10 years ago, you replaced the pumps and everything on the fuel island, but my understanding is the tanks are from the mid-90s. So they're 30-year-old tanks. Now, can't tell you whether they're steel tanks or fiberglass tanks or something in between. They've probably hit their life expectancy. So I know when we first did the interview and everything, we talked that the fuel island may be in play. You can take a look at the program and the way we've laid it out. We would encourage you to relocate the fuel island. But if you say, no, we're not relocating the fuel island, we can still work around that. But I think overall, you're going to see it's more positive to relocate it. And based on the age and everything, it doesn't seem inappropriate to do that. But again, there's not a whole lot of details we have on that other than that, and that came primarily from the highway department. The site needs to be organized and just cleaned up, which you probably knew that. And the salt storage shed we're not even touching because that's a relatively new structure, and I don't think the town will have an appetite to relocate a perfectly good structure, especially when it doesn't provide any advantage by relocating it. Yes?
Another question. Do you have the utilities, all the utilities and information for the civil and electrical, underground, any other items that are out in the yard?
Yes. So right now, we have a topographic survey that was provided to us by the town. We have not hired a surveyor to do that yet. This is something we can talk about. If we were to release the surveyor tomorrow, we're probably not going to see the survey for 6 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks. So the question is right now we just want to get you to the point where if you can make a decision tonight, and I'm not sure that this will happen tonight, but let's just say it does, we can then make that determination whether we need additional surveys and stuff. At the end of the day, the answer is probably going to be yes, because I think the survey we have is probably about 10 years old, I want to say, somewhere around there. So I'm sure there's some things in there. Regarding the utilities, though, Peter Glick, who is our civil engineer, is pretty confident that the utilities are fine because you have water and sewer out in the street, we have gas in the street, and we have plenty of power. So there's nothing out there that we're concerned about that cannot support the operations and everything. If you were doing septic or something, we'd be a little more concerned, or a well, but you don't have any of those problems. So all I can tell you is we have all the utilities on the site. The question is are they in the optimum location and everything? That would have to be determined, and then we will have to get a little more into the details about where the actual services are coming in, which would mean we would have to go through a more thorough topographic survey.
My only concern is that we're going to build something over existing utility that we're going to have to, like the electrical supply to the existing highway garage is right in the corner.
Right.
We can't put an addition on there unless we remove all that
Right.
infrastructure, which is very costly. And I don't want to
You're
do
going to be
that.
doing that anyways, because when I get to the electrical part, you'll see that you're putting a new electrical service into that building. Okay. So
Okay.
we will talk about that. Next item, please, Mike. So structural. So the good news is the structural frame is in good shape. That's fabulous. Now, you'll see that there's a lot of IEBC, that's the International Existing Building Code and everything. And let me interpret all of this. Okay. If we alter any of the stability components of the building, we have to, repair them and or upgrade them. So currently you have a steel frame, and what they're using the masonry infill walls as shear walls, okay? You will see on our plans that what we are proposing to make the building more efficient is to punch holes into some of those walls in order to put overhead doors so the trucks can move more, efficiently through those and stuff. Not a major crisis, we just put some diagonal bracing in and stuff, but that's what that comment is about. It's not going to be a budget buster, it's not driving, millions of dollars or anything like that. It's just some alterations that if we do anything to the shear walls, we will have to deal with that. The next one is a more thorough So right now you have an existing, basically a metal pan roof up there with bad insulation. If we put the new roof on, which we're proposing that we would put an insulated metal panel, if it only weighs 5% more than the existing roof, we basically don't have to do anything but put the new roof on. If it weighs between 5% and 10% more, we have to do a partial analysis of it and to see if we can. If the new roof system weighs more than 10% than the existing roof system, then we have to do a full building analysis of the building. So that's just something we're looking into. You will not be adding solar panels to that roof, or at least the existing component. The building will probably just squeak by, probably in that 5 to 10% range with the new metal insulated panels. Okay, it'll be a standing seam. They're great, very efficient and everything, and they will provide additional insulation and everything. The perimeter masonry walls are in good shape, and they are masonry. They have the joint ties, but what they don't seem to have is any bond beams. Now again, as many holes that we're going to propose punching into this, we're saying not a big deal. We would skin it with metal panel anyways, which will bring up the thermal value. It addresses all sorts of things. For example, because on the existing envelope, you'll notice that they have that 4-foot section of translucent panels. Okay, it's just a piece of plastic up there. It's deteriorating and everything. There is no thermal insulation or value in there. So either we replace it all with glass or we replace it with metal insulated panels and put the windows where they need to be and everything. And then, like I said, there's good news that there's no differential settlement that's been observed in this. So what I guess I'm saying is most architects would say, let's rip down the building because we all love to do new buildings. But the reality is, in good faith, I can't tell you to rip that building down completely. I can tell you the structure's good, the slabs are good, and basically we can get by using that building. And when you see the two concepts that we've prepared, it makes sense to reuse that building. Now, would I say rip all the masonry off and put metal panels on and get better insulation and put the windows where you need them and get the doors? Absolutely. In a heartbeat, I would do that. And that is one of the things that we would be proposing. But we can have a discussion on that as we, move into that. Next one, Mike, please. Okay, architectural. Well, the roof needs to be replaced because it leaks. The translucent panels, I told you, are deteriorated, provide no thermal value, nor does the walls. There's a 6-inch block with about an inch of rigid insulation in airspace, and then a 4-inch veneer outside. Good news is I was advised that the industrial hygienist has gone in there. There is a mastic in there, which is typical for buildings like that, but it's not hot, which means there's no asbestos. So there's right now been no identification of any asbestos in that building. So congratulations, you're the first building we've done that's of that vintage that doesn't have any asbestos in, which is really great news. I mean, that really is very good news. Because there's nothing worse than trying to get the mastic off because you're literally paying to throw all the brick away and the masonry because you can't scrape it off. And so you actually pay probably 5 times what you would pay for a regular abatement. So the interior masonry is in good shape, so we will be reusing some of that and salvaging that. The restrooms are not handicapped, they're deteriorating and stuff. The offices, they're just all worn. It's a 50-year-old building. And the overhead doors are in fair condition. So probably didn't tell you anything you didn't already know about your building, except that maybe you didn't know that there is no asbestos in there, which is great. Next slide. Fire protection. There's no backflow preventer on the 6-inch service coming in there. There's no hydrant, within 100 feet or on the site, which will have to be in. And there's no sprinklers on the on the underside of the overhead doors. And what that means is when the overhead doors come up, they block the sprinklers above, so you have to put sprinklers underneath, both top and bottom. So in case the door is in an open condition, if there's a fire, it can still, work. So, not a real complicated building to do, so, that's, good news. Plumbing, no handicap facilities, as we've talked, no female showers. There's just a little stall that somebody made for the one woman that's working down there now. As I mentioned, the floor drains are clogged and everything. There's no black flow preventer or a pressure reducing valve on the domestic water coming in, and there's no mixing valves on the water heaters. So there's 2 water heaters up there, and they're So next one, Mike.
No gas sand trap.
What's that?
The gas sand trap. There's no.
Yeah, there's no gas, oil, sand trap either. Thank you, Mike. HVAC, there is minimal ventilation in there, but it's not adequate. And in particular, there's no interlock with the CO detector. So you can have CO in and the alarm can go off, but it doesn't tell you anything about it in the office, so you can be asphyxiated in the office. So that would have to be addressed. There's no NO. That's not that because I love when you do PowerPoint spelling and check, they say, you put no twice. No, that's the nitrogen oxide sensors in the garage either. You usually have CO, NO detectors in the garage because of the diesel trucks and stuff. The offices have inadequate ventilation, and as do the repair bays. There's no exhaust system for vehicles and everything, and under the code, you're supposed to have a 0.75 CFM per square foot movement of air out of there, which you don't have. Now, they'll say, well, we leave the doors open all the time, but that's not the way the code reads. You're supposed to have this. Finally, when we get down to the electrical is probably the most outdated of all the systems, and it is inadequate. And again, I'll let you read it in the report because I'm not an electrical engineer, just know enough to be dangerous. Don't stick your finger in the plug. It's 400 amp service, 12208 volt, 3-phase, 4 wires without a main circuit breaker. There used to be you could bring in 6 circuits into a panel without a switch gear or anything else. They brought in 7, which is a violation. There's nothing we can do. You're going to be upgrading your entire electrical system because it just doesn't meet code. And the existing generator, from my understanding, came from one of the local schools. It's about 16 years old, whether it could do the whole building or not. And then the panels don't meet code and everything. Shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, but the bigger thing is you basically have no way to turn off the power to that building. Usually you have a disconnect switch or, something to throw. That building is a crapshoot on that one. So, so that's why when you brought up the utilities you're upgrading your electrical, you're upgrading your plumbing, you're upgrading your HVAC, and basically all we're saving is the shell of the building, But again, what I'm seeing in there, most of that seems original to the building. And I know they've done some upgrades with some limited lighting and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's pretty original to the building, most of that. So that's kind of the assessment. Are there any questions on the assessment? Okay.
I mean, this is probably a really, why can't you just unclog the drain?
Huh?
Like, the drains,
Well,
are
you
clogged. I don't
can if-
understand why they can't just be unclogged. Are
Well,
they
there's a
from your
potential,
house?
there's a potential that you can unclog them, but the question is, are they clogged because of dirt in them, or are they clogged because of they're collapsed on the outside? They're 50-year-old, they're probably cast iron pipes, and if it were a little older, I would bet they were clay pipes, which I guarantee would have been collapsed. But it's 50-year-old cast iron pipe that's probably rotted. They put salt and sand down there for the last 50 years. You may never be able to jet those out and clean those, So, but again, I guess we're not excited about that. That is not our big problem. I mean, I think this building overall, the first time Mike will ever hear me say, is we're actually excited because at least it's a decent building. Okay, I mean, it's not, and if we have to trench, put the new drain in, trench part of the slab to put the new thing to tie it outside the building, we're only talking maybe 30 feet of trenching to tie in a new system and everything. And when you see what we're going to do to the building, I don't even think that you're going to be doing a heavy lift on that because we're putting all the heavy lift in the new building. So, next slide, Mike. Okay, so you're all familiar with this. I don't need to show you anymore. You have your existing highway garage, water, sewer, salt storage, and you basically see the property lines. Okay, next one, Mike.
Can we hold on a second and make sure that Patrick doesn't have any questions? I don't
Oh,
want to
sure.
forget about him on, Pat, do you-
I'm actually fine, Beth. I don't have any questions. I am not surprised by anything that's
Okay.
been discovered in that building.
All right.
And the drainage things, I had a dry well that was 30 years old. It got clogged, could not be unclogged, had to redig it and just do it over again. It's just, to me, that's just kind of a general maintenance type of thing, similar to these drains.
All right, great, thanks.
But we do have the drainage layout of what those pipes, where they are. On the existing building, on the 74, 76 building.
Well, I have not seen those yet, the plans. I did ask, and Keith sent over some plans, which were great. The scans are not the best. The good news is at least the structural scans were really good, so it made it really easy to work on that. I have not seen the electrical or the plumbing plans on those yet.
Okay,
So I will follow up again with Keith, but I asked him to send me everything that he had, and he sent me about 10 plans, which were primarily architectural and structural.
have you done an assessment on the existing water sewer building in regards to asbestos and the other hazards?
I believe that came back clean too, didn't it?
Who's referring to what? Which
The
one?
water
Water
sewer.
sewer building, if we're gonna take it down, is
Yeah.
it?
Okay,
Minimally has
Some tiles.
some. No, he didn't see any tiling, took lots of samples.
Really?
It was the caulking around the existing initial
No
original
kidding.
windows. That's it. So the process, to be clear, that was data sampling, and he took, 80, 90 samples throughout the
Right.
building,
Yeah.
And in a day and a half, that was the feedback on the data sampling, and he will create a report that will outline the square footage and the anticipated cost of what was found, and it's just that caulking, and we know that even though it's kind of not in a final report yet,
Right.
but that's where that is.
Okay,
You know?
and then the other thing too is, and I will just share our opinion, and I think Steve and them are on board with this. We're going to just assume that the caulking has PCBs in it. You never report PCBs. Today, you never sample for PCBs. You just assume that they have PCBs. Because if it has PCBs, it's a reportable event, which means then you have to treat everything, like scrape the brick down and everything. So it's easier just not to test. And we do this at universities and everything when you're replacing windows. You just tell them to handle it's like PCBs. They will dispose of the caulking as PCBs. But as long as I don't know it's PCBs, sure, you might pay a little extra, but it's a lot cheaper, because when we did that down in, what was it, Ridgefield, or, they had to cut 6 inches of brick out because of where the PCBs leached into the brick and everything. So you're better off not to know that it's not PCBs.
Okay.
Okay, so, and again, I assume that they took that approach, Steve, I'm not sure, but,
Well, they haven't issued the report. All they
Yeah.
did was provide data
Okay.
samples.
But yeah.
But that's very, very commonly done, and
Yes.
you aptly described.
yes, so, okay. So, let's talk about the concepts. Now, again, these are concepts, this is our initial, input from what we got from all the user groups. We're gonna show you two concepts. Option one, which we call the addition to the existing building. It'll be about a 37,000 square foot addition. The existing garage will be reconfigured and everything, and it would redevelops the site to accommodate all the parking and everything. Pros and cons. The good news is the existing water sewer building can stay up and operational during construction. So you do not have to relocate them. Now, is there going to be some site inconveniences? Sure, but the way you'll see that we've put the building, it sits right next to the existing building. We wedged the office building in at a certain dimension, so we're away from it. But both facilities can stay up and operational during the period, and even the fuel island can stay up and operational. Will the contractor be thrilled? Of course not, because he wants a whole clean site all to himself. But it is very doable, and we're not overly concerned about that. We believe it's going to be the most cost-effective solution, because first of all, you're not paying to relocate anybody, and because in the other scheme, you'll see, we tear down the existing water and sewer, which means you have to find a home from them. And we've talked about whether we shuffle them into parks and move parks out, because parks is a little more forgiving as far as moving, because they only have the small mowers and stuff. But then that means Parks is moving twice, and they're probably not going to be thrilled about that. But these are things that we have taken in consideration on how we would phase this and everything. We've segregated the public access to the site and the fleet access, so that these two can work independent. It also addresses your issues on recycling and the composting pile, how you can do that as operational on a weekend or something without impacting the rest of the site. you know, the cons against it are, it will impact the highway operations some, because they're gonna be living next to a construction site. Eventually, their building will have to be renovated. That is something, again, we can talk about, because you will see in the design, even though water sewer primarily has the bulk of their fleet are pickup trucks, which are a smaller requirement. They do have two big vac trucks, which we have to accommodate. But the bulk of their fleet, over like 3/4 of, is pickup trucks. We are designing the garage to take full 10-wheelers with plows on them. So that, because today they're running around in pickup trucks, just like, you know, 10 years ago, a vac truck was pretty rare. Everybody's getting vac trucks today, and those are monsters. They're 55 feet long. So I don't see equipment getting smaller in the future, and I don't think you all will be happy with us if we design for pickup trucks today, only to find out that you have water and sewer running in 10-wheelers next week, and then you say, now the garage is obsolete. So that's why we're saying we're designing it for that. It also gives us the opportunity, is once the new building is up, you'll see in the arrangement, highway could move into the water sewer garage temporarily while we're renovating the other portion of the building. So that's why you'll see that occurring. And then, again, the infamous fuel island. We are recommending you replace it, but you all will tell us whether you want that. Next slide, Mike, please. Okay, so it kills me not to be able to stand up and point and everything, but
You're welcome to stand up and point.
well, I just don't know if everybody will see you. Well, I will do
We're
this.
not going to
then.
stop you.
All right. Well, let me, yeah, I'll start here. Okay. So what we tried to do is color code it.
Just stay near a mic, I think.
Oh, okay.
That way the people at home can still hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully Mark will turn that mic on for us so that it works.
So what we tried to do was color code this so that you would be able to understand the groups and stuff. So this yellow tone is what we fleet maintenance, and that is their new garage. Currently, they have 3 bays. They've asked up to 6 bays. Okay, they're anticipating that they're going to be getting 3 more mechanics in time. They have also indicated that over time, they may be servicing the fire trucks. I don't know if any of this is all true. I'm just saying what I was told, and I'm going to take them at their word. So what we have tried to do, and we'll get into a little more in the plan, you'll notice we have the 3, what we call single bays, where a full-size 10-wheel truck could move in there, they could service that. And you don't have any 10-wheel trucks in your fleet yet, but, you know, I'm sure they'll be coming in time. Most of yours are 6-wheelers and stuff. But as you can see, that is a 10-wheeler with a plow on it. So they can service any large vehicle like that. And that's currently how they're working most of the vehicles now. What we parked in here were vac trucks, so that they can service vac trucks and or, you know, ladder trucks or anything else. This can be a 3-bay, if you put 3 smaller trucks in. As you can see, I can get 2 vac trucks in and still have accommodations to work and everything. They will be looking for an overhead crane, a 2-ton, in order to lift plows and everything else. So on these single bays, they would just pull a little further in so they could get the crane to work. Otherwise, we're proposing that the crane runs up along this tandem bay. The next item that you'll see is that kind of cyan blue. That is water and sewer. And what happens in water and sewer, so this is the garage that I'm talking. You'll see that these pickups and trucks and stuff kind of look lost in there, like there's a lot of room. But what we figure is going to happen is we already stuff shelving there and everything, because ultimately that's what they're going to want to do. But if you needed to, you could park 10-wheelers in here and they would operate. This is the same size as that, and you see how efficient they've managed to work that. You'll also notice that we put on this bay, we always put it at the end condition, is for the vac trucks, because they're just too monstrous to turn inside of inside the building. So we just let them pull out and do all their turning outside, and they can just park in there. Then these are the workshops and storage rooms and stuff that they have, as well as some trailers that they need to store. And this is where I'm, you know, and again, we'll have a clean white sheet showing this. But right there here is what we call kind of the cruise place, where they have just a table or something that they come in, fill out their paperwork, and they're out. They spend probably 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon. And this is where they could also do like 2 stations for training, because they have online training. And so when I was talking about the office manager, so we're putting the office manager, the assistant, and dispatch right here, where there would be a window right here so that they could see their eye. So they're still part of the bigger office area, but we've pulled them out of this because they prefer to be there anyway. Okay. So the same thing then happens with highway over here. This is the new highway office. This is for the super as well as the office manager. They're right next to their highway area, but again, they're still part of the overall larger area if they need it. These, break room for the water sewer, break room for the highway. We asked the question is, could we put everybody together? And they all get along, nobody had anything bad to say about the other, but they also kind of like their two separate little worlds. The only place that we said you're just gonna have to get along is when you get into the locker rooms. Because you'll see on the other scheme, we have to build 2 locker rooms because of the way the buildings work out. So we've given you a decent-sized women's room, because what is that, like 10 lockers in there, Mike? 10 women, and I know you have no women on staff yet, so, but that could change instantly. And then we put the 40, 45 lockers for the men in this area. Did we
I
get?
think we do have like one woman, don't we?
Huh?
49 there,
49.
I thought.
Huh?
Isn't there one woman?
There is currently one woman
Yeah.
working the highway, yeah, so, but I know we do a lot for Eversource, and, 10 years ago, there was very few, like maybe one woman lineman or underground. They now fill up their locker room with like 100 women. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm just saying, it's a changing thing. So we've adjusted that here. I mean, it's still predominantly male, but we're just saying, if everybody shares the same shower rooms and locker rooms, and say, they get all the new facilities and everything, but most of them aren't doing, I don't even know how many people shower at the end of the day. Right now, it looks like nobody because there's no showers in there worth talking about. The other thing too, you'll notice along the service corridor here where everybody crosses through and everything, we have what we call platform lockers. They're like 2 foot wide, 2 foot deep by 4 feet, and they stack on each other. And what that's really good for is if the crews have boots, rain gear, hard hats, all that miscellaneous, that's where they put that stuff, and they leave their other locker for their clothing when they shower and everything like that. Highway stays pretty much like highway is. There's their main garage. And what we've done now is ripped out all of this area back here, which is currently the break room and everything else, punched in additional doors. So basically, we've doubled the size of highways area for vehicles and stuff. They seem to be, need that. Do they need double the size? Probably not, but it didn't make sense to do anything else with it, other than make this entire area highway. And then over here is the wash bay that all the departments share, So in this case, we would cut out a new line through the slab, put the drain in, pitch the slope so that we can take that to the sand trap and everything, oil water separate, take care of that. This one would probably take a, we'll work those details, but as you can see, there's not a big lift to do that and make that. And then what we've done is we've put parks in the green, parks and cemetery. They have a lot of the smaller equipment, and right now, the only thing that they seem to park in there is one pickup truck at night, okay? But I'm sure if they have a lot of equipment and on a seasonal issue or something, I'm sure Highway can find them a parking space, for one truck. It's not like they have a fleet of trucks. There's their office, and then their little break room, and they have like 2 toilet facilities in there just to meet code and everything. But the idea is, everybody shares this one long building. We're anticipating keeping it at the same height, same roof pitch, reskinning it. The garage bay may have to bump up slightly higher. We're working out those details to just make sure. But when you look at it, we'd be a long extension of the building, and that's why we're looking at doing the, new metal roof and everything. When you get up front here, basically these are all the managers and supervisors in these private offices. There's cubicles here, which a lot of them said they could be happy to work in. The only request I got from everybody there, and I heard it like 8 times from everybody I walked by, windows, 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 because they feel like they're living in a dark hole. So what we've done is we've given them an entire wall of glass. So they'll have plenty of light and everything, and we'll put clear storage. And it makes sense to. So all the offices around, and we have 8 offices in there, which seems to be more than enough, and with some extra space. We have a conference room there. There's a little meeting room here, like a 4-person meeting room, because they said they need a little one, break room, storage and stuff. And again, we're going to sit down and work through all of these with the various groups. Next slide, Mike. As far as this goes, this is mezzanine now. Over the office in the garage area, we'd put a mezzanine for the garage personnel. Over this, and this is, so basically this line over is the new building. This now becomes water and sewers mezzanine, This room back there is a meeting room. What is a meeting room? Well, I guess you guys like these really funny little benches that they're about 15, 18 inches off the thing. They're about 6 feet long and about 30 inches wide. Some people might call them cots. Some of us look at them as benches, okay? This is a meeting room, and I will just leave it at that. There was the, request that they find a place for these funny little benches, because during snowstorms and everything, and I guess they go up to the meeting room and have a meeting up there. It's a very quiet meeting, I hear. So, and the only reason we say that is because there's a lot of implications if you start calling it bunk rooms and everything else. So, and it sounds like it doesn't happen that often. Half a dozen times a year.
I think what we've talked about is when there's those long duration storms that go on and on, sometimes for multiple days, right?
Yes.
The way that they roll in, that we need a place for
The meeting?
people to rest. We don't, so that they can get back out on the road. I think a lot of times we have our contractors, right, that are coming from a distance. They don't necessarily live in town, so it's not practical for them to go home and then try to come back, especially if the weather is bad. So definitely want a space where our operators can
go
do
to the
that.
meeting.
Yes, can.
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
very
eat with their eyes
boring.
closed. Yep, and rest. Yep.
Some people are really good presenters and others just bore you to death. I don't know what that's about. So, but no, we figured that, yes, and that's exactly what we heard. The bigger issue is if you're working your 8-hour shift, and it's, you don't want to spend 3 hours going home and coming back. So that's exactly what we heard. But that's why we put that in an enclosed room with the proper ventilation, proper lighting and stuff for your meetings. You would simply come up the stairs, or you go down, and if you remember, that's where all the all the locker rooms and everything, kitchenette. So you can eat, sleep during the meeting if you want, and shower, all in the one place. This would be mezzanine, and again, this would be the garage mezzanine that we would then give them.
Where does the building end right now on that?
Right now, the building ends right here at the beige line.
So
Right
so that
there.
beige is in the new,
Is in the new wing, yes.
okay, all right.
Do you require an elevator to get up there?
No, because it's a meeting room, it's not a public space.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that under your job description, that if this is something, so there's two things that you have to consider when considering accessibility. One is MMAB, which is the Massachusetts, Handicapped Accessibility Code. And basically what all that addresses is the physical requirements of a building, okay? The other one is ADA, which is a federal. And on top of the physical requirements, they also talk about the employment requirements, okay? Now, if you have certain things, and I don't know what your job descriptions for these drivers are and the mechanics and stuff, but when we would do like wastewater treatment plants and stuff like that, or even like Eversource, like linemen and underground, you have to be a fully able-bodied individual to work some of those jobs, okay? So what we're saying is, we're assuming that's who's going to be using that meeting room. If for some reason you have a supervisor that doesn't fall under that requirement and it has to have, well, then maybe they go to the meeting room downstairs, okay? So you've now made a reasonable accommodation for everybody. So you will meet all the federal as well as the state requirements for accessibility.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I'm sorry if I sound a little cagey on these things, but I just want to make sure that we all get the right language down, just so that everybody understands the implications of some of these things.
Sure.
So, and then you'll notice that there's a little green mezzanine area here now. That's an existing mezzanine. That's where the vehicle repair garage is right now, and they use that. And so we would give that to Parks, and that's Parks area. Now, if you remember when I was talking about the masonry walls or shear walls, or that. Mike, you want to go? Well, no, we better not go yet. Okay. But I punched in all the holes back there to allow the trucks to move in and out more freely and stuff, which gives you the maximum flexibility. Because those are shear walls, those will have to be rebraced. And whether it's diagonal bracing or whatever we put in there, and again, not a big deal. It's not a big deal. The building is in good shape. The engineers are confident with it. It's just something that we're going to have to consider if we decide to move on a plan similar to this. All right, next slide, Mike. All right, this is what I guess we're most excited about, and it's probably hard for you guys to see, but you'll notice that that office piece wedges in just like that. It's about 20 feet off of the existing water sewer building. The reason we did that is because then they can dig, they can put the foundations in, do everything they need to do, come over here, you see we overlap the existing highway building by about 15 feet. So we're saying this is the new office addition, this is where we extend the existing building on. Again, is it ideal working environment? You know, these guys are gonna say, oh, we miss our back route and stuff, sure, but you can still work and everything on that. Is the mic not working? It's fine. Oh, okay. So, but what it also does, we feel that it cleans up the entire site from an organizational point of view. What we would propose is a new curb cut here, okay? Relocate the fuel island next to the salt storage island, where this is where all the fleet comes in. The fleet has some parking here, they can bring the trucks in, drive around, do whatever they want, and you can put a gate there like you currently have. And then we'd also put a gate here for there. So basically, I can lock off 3/4 of the site from public access, all day and all night, weekends and everything. Whether water sewer comes out of this, drives around like this to leave the fleet exit, or whether you want them to use this entrance, that's a decision and a management, you know, that we'll review with the various user groups. But if you do put a gate right here, which we're suggesting that you do, what this allows is during the weekends, or whatever operational hours, they can come in here, there's a little guardhouse or, you know, attendee's house, which was requested and needed, for the recycling. There's some trailers that they have for like the mattresses and stuff, you can put some dumpsters, and this kind of circular thing is for like the composting pile. Okay. So people can come in here, drop their stuff off, and leave like that. They can't go past the gate, so they're completely segregated. If it's an incredibly busy Saturday, and 300 people have nothing better to do than go to the recycling all at 10 o'clock. What we're proposing is they come in, they queue up through the parking lot like this, and then circulate out. So you won't have any queuing problems on South Street either. So basically we're saying this is the public realm. Employees and the public would park in here. If I was visiting, needed to talk to the water and sewer or something, I'd come into the front entrance here, request them, the water and sewer can either meet me in the conference room, meet me and take me to their office or whatever. But as you can see, we've basically isolated the fleet operations and everything and all the critical operations in the back. And then obviously what we would do is develop this back area here too for your spoils and your material bins and everything else. Additional trailers and everything could fit in there. You'll notice that we have some parking along here. We've put some parking along here. If you chose to, whether it's this initial cost or whether you do it at a future date, you could actually put canopies up there as well, so that then you could provide additional coverage for these vehicles should you get more and more vehicles. And then we did punch in a little door here as well, just so whether Parks uses or something, so that you have full access to this. So overall, we think that the building worked out great. The building is where it should be, smack dab in the middle of the site, and we believe that the site plan as shown now gives you an opportunity to segregate the areas from fleet and from the public, and it all works very well, very efficient. Next slide, Mike. Okay, so this is just an enlarged plan of what we've been talking about. I know it's probably incredibly difficult for you all to see it. I'll be happy to address any particular issues you may have on the plan, but again, garage, mechanics office thing, water sewer, vehicle storage. This is their parts room, one for water, one for sewer. They're willing to do a common workshop, shared area. We left this open in case they have to bring in a pipe with a hydrant or something on it, that they can work that way. They have what we call a decontamination room. It's not really that, but they said sometimes they come in, they're covered with sewage or something. That gives them a place to wash down. There's a little washer and dryer here that everybody can use, the entire fleet. They have some trailers that are specialized trailers that they need to park inside, so that's why we did that. This is where the crews would come in the morning. I can actually stand at the dispatch window, do a sliding window or not, however they want to work it out, and say, here's your order, here's what you're doing today, here's what you're doing. They can fill out their information. We would plug in a couple of those terminals so that they could do training, because they do computer training there too. And then there's their offices, so they're all together. We did have to give them a little bit of and this is something we have to work through with engineering as well as water and sewer. They do have some flat files, and so this is kind of the flat file room with a surface that they can lay stuff out. Right now, it's just kind of in the middle of nowhere land that they use. This is their break room, shared locker room for the men's, women's locker room. This is highways, break room. Highways, vehicles and stuff. So if I were an employee, I could park here, or if you allow me to park on the site, come through the building, come through here, or just walk along the edge, come through this, so I don't even have to tromp through the office area, go to my locker, get my assignment break, go either to water and sewer or go out to the highway area. And then Parks has their little area here. This would be the highway manager and his supervisor. And I've met both of them. This would be the restrooms for the office area. Now, of course, anybody could use them if they want, but I'm assuming that the crews are going to use the crews. And again, that's kind of a maintenance thing. But then this is where the either the public could use it if they, somebody who's visiting, or this is where the office staff works. Offices is for the various departments on either side, main meeting room, reception area here. And the way I've seen it working upstairs is they seem to all share the reception responsibilities. And so I will call Justin or whoever I need to do if that's what their business. So there's 2 seats there. You could even get 3 seats in there if you needed to. Still visible from the cubicles and everything. And again, we can shuffle some of these pieces around. So let's go to the next slide. And that's just the mezzanine, and I think we've already talked that one. All right, so let's go to, now what we're doing is we're going to go to option 2. So option 2 is basically a standalone building. And you'll see that we keep the existing highway garage up there, and what we're proposing there is Parks and Highways would stay in the existing building, and it would get fully renovated, and then all the other functions would move over into the new building. It's about 500 square feet, 600 square feet smaller than the addition. I'm not sure it buys you anything. It's just, we were asked to take a look at a couple different things. Obviously, the existing building would be fully reconfigured and renovated, and then we do the site development. So the pro is, you'll see it's very similar to this one. We segregate the public and the public from the fleet vehicles. I think this has a lot more cons than it does pluses. The existing water and sewer will have to relocate during the construction, which could be a challenge because they have a lot of stuff and a big fleet. And unless you have like a car dealership or something that's vacant in town, there's not a whole lot of places they can move. So that's why we would think if you do go with this option, we would tell them to move into Parks and Cemeteries area and then move Parks and Cemeteries somewhere else, because it would be easier to find small trailers or garage or something so they can park their mowers as opposed to the bigger operations. It's more expensive. Why? Because you actually are going to be duplicating some of the functionality. So for example, the new building will have a locker room for men's and women. The existing building will have a locker room for men's and women's. You notice where we butt up against the existing building, we don't have to do that end of the existing building. When it's a standalone building, we're redoing all 4 sides and everything. You're bringing in double utilities and everything. So that's why we, refer to it as duplicating. It makes it. It will impact a highway during construction. Now, again, we can talk about it. Both schemes impact the highway and parks. The question is, do we build the new building first and then let the highway share with water sewer until their building is renovated? We think that you could actually, if you go with the first scheme, get everything done a little more systematic. Because what I mean by that is, we're estimating it's going to take about 2 weeks to replace that roof with metal panels, okay? Is it ideal that highway's in there during that work? No, but it's not dangerous work. I mean, we just tell people, if you have a really critical piece of, because you're only picking up foam panels with metal skins, and so it's not like you're going to be having a lot of hair. Plus, they're out most of the day. So you could just tell the contractor, you don't start the roof until 8 o'clock, and you have to be done by 2 o'clock so that the fleet can come back in. And I know they do come back for lunch, but again, there can be made arrangements and everything. So we do think that you could actually do the first one a little easier with a contiguous construction as opposed to breaking it up. And then, in this case, the fuel island will have to be relocated. So Mike, if you go. So you will see that this is a very similar plan and everything. Highway's doing their thing, Parks is doing here, they get a slightly reduced area, because this white core now is where we have the break rooms and the bathrooms and all of that for them. You'll see this building looks very similar. The big thing we did is we tacked the wash bay on here. Not in love with the location of the wash bay, but it was the place that we could put it. The office and everything pretty much stays the same, and the program for all essential purposes is pretty much the same. I'll be happy to bore you with more details, but I think you've heard everything I can say about the plan. Next one, Mike. Mezzanine, like I said, there's less mezzanine for highway here, because there you're only gonna get it for the water and sewer. They have the little small mezzanine. One thing I've noticed with highway and stuff, everybody seems to want storage, whether it's for signs, cones, or everything in between. And granted, we all know that they probably store some stuff they shouldn't be storing. They probably have stuff stored there that's 300 years old, and they've never used it in the last, 300 years, but for some reason, nobody wants to clean it out. I get it, but again, as soon as you do the new building, you'll see a lot of this stuff go away. Next slide, Mike. Okay, and so this is what happens to the site. Again, we've tried to keep the segregation of the public from the fleet operations. You'll see we've compressed the parking quite a bit here, so now we're jockeying parking around and everything. We've wiped out the water sewer building, which just creates, the biggest headache, I think, for you there. And you're really not getting anything, out of this by having a standalone building. We looked at even doing a brand-new building and plopping it right here, taking out highway, taking everything out to see if we could make it more efficient. We're not saving that. We might save 1,000 square feet, 2,000 on a good day if we do a brand-new building from scratch. But that what it means you're doing is you're paying to replicate all of this when it exists already. So why not spend 30 cents on the dollar to renovate this rather than $1 on the dollar to renovate this? This is where the building wants to be. It wants to be smack dab in the middle of the site. The fact that that building's there is, I guess, 50% of the battle. Because putting it here doesn't make sense, because then you have the no man's zone in the back. Putting it back here doesn't make sense, because then you have the no man's zone in the front. And the building wants to be where it is, and that's why they originally put the building where it is. Now, I don't know about the origins of the compost pile and stuff, but that's all easy stuff to take care of. The salt shed isn't moving. So we said, let's lose the assets that you have, and again, our strongest feelings is put the addition on the building. So that's kind of the whole, presentation right now. We will be happy to address any questions you may have.
What's that dash line that, around the parking? Right. That, go down, right there. What is that?
These are parking spaces, and these are trees.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of hard to see from,
Yeah,
you know.
but it looks like the parking is like cut in half on that.
It is.
There's some in the front, though,
Yeah,
right?
so you have the public
This-
parking here,
they're
you have
separate.
employee fleet parking here. So now the employees either have to come through here and park in this, or they come through the fleet entrance.
Now, can you lock everything off with that?
You can lock this off, and now if I'm, if I have my SUV, I guess I can pop the curb and get in there, and put the, and yes, you can put the gate there as well. It's not optimal in our mind. Mike, if you can go back to the other plan.
Yeah.
This gives you the optimum plan, because as you can see, we get all the employee and everything parking there. You get some additional parking here and some down here and down there. And then, again, you can share that. Supervisors, managers, fleet vehicles, you can put whatever you want there. But you do clearly have, this corner here is the public zone. Everything else is operations. And, like I said, we looked at probably 5 different schemes of how to put this building stuff. And we can bring you 5 different schemes, but they're all gonna look like iterations on this. And it just made sense to just do the addition. Which is, like I said, you probably don't typically hear that from an architect, put an addition on.
I got a couple of questions, as
Certainly.
always.
That's fine, ask as many as you want.
In your square footage numbers, I don't see any utility space. You talk about a whole new electrical system, but I don't see an electrical substation or any other utility spaces that are gonna be
Yeah, okay,
needed within the building.
Yeah, so we would always put the utility rooms on the mezzanine.
You can put them up on the mezzanine.
We put the electric room on the mezzanine, we'll put the boiler on the mezzanine and everything. Because basically what you're gonna have is you're gonna have obviously switch gears, a BDA closet, all of that. Mezzanines are great locations because they're not frequently used. They still need to be accessible and everything. We have so much mezzanine space on there. I can carve out, what do we usually have, like 1,000 square feet total maybe? So we just carve out a chunk of the mezzanine, put up. Now, the other nice thing about it, it's just out of the way.
And our people are okay with that, accessibility and other
Well,
people
we haven't
to
had that
manage?
discussion with them. I don't know why they wouldn't be okay with it. I mean, and again, just because we do it on all the other garages doesn't mean that's the way you want your garage. But one thing that we do find is, why would anybody be in the electric room? I mean, there's gonna be panels on the first floor, and there's gonna be electric closets on the first floor and stuff, so they can shut stuff off and everything. But as far as the main utility services and everything coming in, why do they need to be there? The hot water boiler. I mean, why do you need that on we can just get that up and out of the way. The BDA closet is just sitting there as insurance policies. That's the bidirectional amplification. It just sits up there waiting for a fire, which hopefully you will never see.
Yeah, the only problem I see is that the electrical comes right in that corner where the addition is. So you're gonna have to, I don't know what you do about keeping the operations going while you building in the addition, then get the mezzanine, and then tie the electrical back in.
Well, again, so this is.
That's like a constructability issue that we're gonna have.
Yeah, so we would look through it, so here's what I would say on that, and this, again, we're not there yet, but these are things we,
But that affects to me, that affects, well, maybe option two, we don't have that issue. But I didn't see that one of your pros and cons. See what I'm saying?
no, I hear what you're saying. I guess I'm not overly concerned about it yet until I sit down with my electrical engineer because there may be a temporary, connection. There could be a lot of things that could happen there because, which you don't see on these plans very well, because I don't know if you can kind of see that strip right there. Okay, that's what we call the no man's zone, because we cannot build right next to the existing addition. We're going to be off like 5 feet to get the columns and everything else in. There is going to be a no man's zone there too. Those are one of those areas that may become the temporary utilities or something. And the reason you do that is because you don't want the buildings moving. The existing building is stable, the new building will probably settle. And when I say settle, we're talking like 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch over time, and there's going to have to be a joint there anyway. But yes, but we have electrical problems anyways on this building.
Oh, yeah.
And so that may be the first bullet we bite and just have to say, hey, you know what, this is what's happening with the new electrical.
I think you're gonna have the same problem with the ventilation system, because on the north side of that existing garage, all those vents are blowing right out into the new
Yes.
building. So you're gonna have to renovate the existing building before you start the other building.
Potentially.
Again, this is a constructability
Sure.
issue that we just gonna have to address.
We will have to address, yes. Right now, which was really nice, is you guys have you seen the ductwork in there?
Yes.
It's spectacular.
Right.
It's the flex ducts, as we call it. I wish all our buildings could use that duct. The fabric ducts, because they blow up when you need in space and when you don't. Yes, those are things we'll definitely have to consider. The fact that you don't have a lot of ventilation and everything in there right now is not necessarily, the biggest crisis, and we will work around that. But those are all very fair and valid comments that we'll have to address.
See, and to me, I can see that as maybe renovating the building, tearing down the sewer and the other building before we even start looking at the addition.
But then
Only because I see issues on constructability and the phasing of everything that's going on here.
So what would you do with water and sewer if we tear that down before we do the addition?
I wouldn't tear it down until I renovated the other part of the existing building.
Well, again, we will, if that's the direction that you're moving in, and I guess that's what we're looking for, the direction that, and I don't know whether this committee makes that decision. Who makes the decision in saying we're going with option 1 or option 2?
Oh, well, that would be us.
That's us.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, yeah, we would
that's
make
what we're
that
here for.
decision.
okay.
I hear Pat. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, we would make that decision. In terms of how the construction would commence and what you would do first, last. I mean, I would take advice from everybody on that, and then go with, I'm certainly not an expert on it. Stephen might know more about it, I think, and Keith know more about it than Beth and I do. But as we did on the police station, I would go with basically their recommendations. That's why we're hiring. That's why we've hired an OPM. That's why we're hiring a construction manager. And I would lean on their expertise if those are the people that we're paying.
Agreed.
Agree.
Yep, I think that's well said.
So depending on what direction, I mean, this is obviously the next phase that we'll have to talk about in the next 3 weeks.
So are you looking from us tonight to select an option?
What I'm looking for is, you've asked me to submit the final package on the 10th of September, okay? I'm not gonna demand that I have the answer right tonight, because it'll take me time to go home and I'll have to get up tomorrow morning and stuff. But I can't wait until September 1st to get the answer, unless you wanna push the schedule out and not meet the 10th of September deadline.
So when I look at the agenda, I do not see that we're voting this evening. I just see that we're receiving an update. So I think the best course forward would be to get a sense of the committee as to whether we're leaning toward option 1 or option 2. That way you have that to go on. And then when we have our next meeting date set, that would be when we would vote on
On the
which
option.
option. We cannot vote this evening because the agenda does not say that we can.
Right.
Agreed.
Beth, from my perspective, I mean, to me, it's a pretty easy decision. You're looking at lower cost and more efficiency by going with option 1. Both things that the town generally looks for. It also disrupts the operations less than going with option 2. So as of this moment, without hearing from anybody else, that would be my preference.
Okay?
Yeah, but we can't vote.
We're not going to vote, but we can.
No,
get a
I know
sense
we're
of
not
the
going to vote.
committee.
That's my opinion at this point.
Right,
Oh, okay.
so what's your opinion, I guess we can, I think I would agree with what I'm hearing Pat say, right? I'm leaning toward option 1 right now, for the same reasons.
Yeah, same here. Same here. And I think, you know, that the buildability is more of a means and methods for the, you know, and I agree with Patrick that our OPM should be directing us in that regard to make sure that the MEPs are, you know, the ones that you've consulted with, that it's buildable, and they don't see any issue with it. Or at least it's doable, and at what cost? You know,
That's-
anything can be done.
That's my concern, the cost.
But we're not talking numbers, correct?
We're not.
Right now?
No,
I
exactly.
can
Talking
share numbers
layout?
with you.
We're talking concept.
I'd rather talk concept right now.
Yep.
Yes.
Rather than numbers.
So
I would
let-
not like to talk about numbers.
Fair
Let's-
enough, and that's why I said we could, and I didn't mention it for that specific
Yep.
reason. Okay,
Because the number you put out is the number that people are going to remember. And so I want to make sure everybody internally, right, who should be working on those numbers has done everything to make sure that they are accurate before, I don't want to spitball.
right,
Right.
fair enough.
Thank you.
I agree.
That's specifically why I have not mentioned any numbers yet.
Do we want to take the plan down so we can bring Patrick back on the screen? Or Pat, do you feel disconnected? What's your
No,
preference?
no, I'm fine.
Okay, all right.
So,
I would, you know, I know we're going to be going at the next meeting for a vote. I'm very curious to hear Keith's
Yeah, that's the
opinion.
other
I'm
part.
sure he's seen these at this point. But I would certainly like his input before any vote were taken.
Yeah, I agree.
so let's talk about schedule then. Today is the 12th. I have 18 days in August, counting weekends and everything, and I have 10 days in September. We have 28 days to finish this up. Is the schedule going to slip? Which we're fine with. I'm just asking the question because what we owe
No.
you at the end.
No, the schedule is not going to
Okay.
slip.
Can't.
So I don't want to jump ahead, but we will, plan the next meeting date. You have a sense from us, right? That you can stop working on 2, right? Because
Okay.
we're all leaning toward 1. That's the sense of this committee. I'm seeing nodding from Vertex, right? So once you're done with your update, we'll talk about outreach and then we'll set another meeting date. My anticipation would be, it would be not next week, but the week after.
Right, 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, okay. Well, thank you, Beth.
you're welcome.
I appreciate your, decisiveness. I'm going to say that. And I mean that in all the most
Because I have the
positive-
gavel.
Yes, well, that's good, no, but see, at least you're not leaving us hanging.
Oh, of course not. No,
Okay, so
we
we
have
are-
dates for a reason, and we're going
Yeah.
to stick to those dates.
Great, okay.
We're
So
way
we
too
will-
early in the process.
We will work
to be
towards
falling
option
behind.
one, because now what we're gonna do is we'll obviously get more into the details. We'll meet with the user groups to make sure we've hit all their things. Look, we're not gonna have every closet refined and everything at this, but at least as long as highways come back and say, yeah, we've bought into this, or parks have bought into it. I don't know what's going to happen if one of them says, absolutely, we can't live with this, and I guess that will be a,
When do you do that review?
well, now that I have a direction that you're leaning, we will probably start setting up meetings with the user groups again, like we did that day, and just have a sit-down session, whether it's here in Town Hall or down there at the Highway Garage, and just pull out the plans and say, here's what we've proposed for your operations. We felt very comfortable, and I will say that all the user groups and the division managers and stuff were actually very good to work with. So nobody was cagey, nobody was high, and they just all laid their cards out on the table, and they all seem to be very agreeable and flexible. Now, that may change once they finally get their building, I don't know. But so far, they've been absolutely great to work with. So I'm not anticipating that we will have any major issues and whole redesigns, but I can tell you that, obviously I'll tell Vertex and we can share with you, if we meet with them, later this week or something, or early next week, and everybody says, this is an absolute disaster, we will send up the red flag. We won't wait till the meeting and say, oh yeah, we met with everybody in Parks once the entire building or
No,
something.
you let Keith know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
Keith, right?
I did have a question, going
Sure,
back to
go
the,
ahead.
which way we would go. Do both of these choices, do they encroach on the potential wetland?
That's what we're gonna find out tomorrow.
But the way that you've shown them?
Right now, no, because what you'll see, and you probably don't see the line that well. There's an area right here, this little kind of squiggly line is a wetlands. And so what we've done is, you see this line here, that's the 100-foot setback for that. The concern that we have, there's a
That's the one I'm talking
cat
about,
hill right
right?
here.
Right, little small area.
Yes, so, again, from a technical point of view, we'll be meeting with Andrew to have that discussion. But our position is, it's such a small area, and for the benefit you get, if we had to replicate that somewhere, it's a relatively small area.
Well, that was my question. Where would you think you'd replicate it?
I would probably replicate it back where the rest of the wetlands
Okay.
is. If I had to enlarge that other wetlands, by cutting off a little peninsula or something to increase that area, that's where we would probably.
And then going back to your slab, the 5-inch slab, it's holding up well, and that is in the existing building. And you had mentioned something about the drain being clogged, and it sounded like you were saying that might be a reason for replacement of the slab?
No, I'm
But
just
then you
saying what
referred
we
to
would do is we
trenching?
would trench it. We would cut a slot
Yeah,
through it.
that's what I
Bring
would-
a new pipe in. We would not replace the slab.
So on the addition side, would you use a structural slab over there, given the vac
We would
truck and?
typically put an 8-inch slab in.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
say, definitely in the repair garage.
Right, keep the-
You could potentially get by with a 6-inch slab in the water sewer. The question is, and again, it's cheap now, it gets really expensive later if you change it. If you decide to park in loaded 10-wheelers with plows and salt and everything else, this is the time to put the,
Right.
8-inch slab in,
Right.
and not 5 years from now when you change that. Those vac trucks, I'm betting you get pretty heavy too. And so rather than playing a lot with the slabs and everything, the idea would be do the slab now. Yes, it's an extra concrete. Yes, you're paying for that initially, but at the end of the day, it's a cheap solution than trying to retrofit later.
Where's the fuel island on this one?
Both fuel islands are right next to the salt storage shed. So we're saying, here's salt storage, put the fuel island right there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, the reason we're saying is, there's nothing really happening along this side. What we also like about this is, if, I don't know if fire and police departments use the fueling too. I know a lot of towns, they have everybody. But one thing that they all like is they want the fire or police to come in, drive around, fuel up, and drive out. They don't want them driving around the whole site and everything. That's why we would propose putting that up front there. And then you guys can make the decision on whether you use key fobs or however, and that's something we'll work through on that. But the idea is that anybody could use that from the town as necessary.
Patrick, do you have any more questions?
I do not, thank you.
Just add one more.
Go ahead.
Of the 77 employees that are gonna be in that, is that taking into consideration what might be moving from town hall?
That's including the town hall. So we're
Okay.
taking everybody from upstairs, and we're including, and you know, and of that 77, there's probably about 10 or 12 that are future hires. And they're primarily, I call them technicians or something, but they're working, like they're either a mechanic working in the bay, or they're working at water and sewer or something. So they're basically going to be taking a truck out every day and everything.
I just
Okay.
want to be clear that there's not plans to increase staff with this design, right? Like, this is planning for the future growth of these departments, but right now, there is no intention to be adding these staff with the opening of the building. Because
is
one of the questions that the public will ask is, well, what are the increased operating costs of this building if you're adding additional staff? And you think about 12 staff. But this is something that we're planning for the future, not saying, okay, when the building opens, we're also going to have the additional operating cost of 12 more staff members. That's not accurate.
No, no. All we've done is, like I said, other than the offices gets probably like 2 or 3 extra cubicles in there, and there's like 2 extra offices. I mean, that's about all the physical impact on the future, anticipated future growth is. Like the mechanics that are working in the garage, they're not gonna get any space. They get the locker room just like everybody else does, so there's no increase. So yes, it's very clear that there will be no additional staff as a result of this building. This is just, we're trying to plan for the next, you know, we'd say 10 to 20 years with the 50-year, you know, building life longevity. One of the things, though, I did hear, and again, consider the source, we did talk to the recycling program manager. We were there and we ran into her and somebody was unloading a mattress and everything, and then somebody else came a second time or something. My understanding is there is a desire to increase the recycling program here in the town. And she seems to have a pretty good handle on the way she's looking to do it. She's not looking to make it a transfer station. She's just looking to deal with like electronics, you know, hazardous waste, mattresses, you know, debris and brush. I guess you guys have your leaf day and stuff. And as I said, she would like a composting pile. I said, that's a hard thing to manage because even though we're only supposed to put leaves in the bags, we all stick our sticks in the bag and things don't quite compost quite as well as you want and everything. But she seemed to be quite reasonable that she thought most of what she could do with is like roll-off dumpsters and or trailers.
Good.
So that's why we've planned that area. And the only thing that she would need is a little admin house out there, a little guard shack, if I can call it, just so somebody could stand out there on the weekends and, you know, monitor what's coming in and out, charge whatever fees there may be for certain things.
Yep, that's reasonable.
So,
Great. Any other questions on this item? You have one?
I had something I'd like to ask, just real quick. One theme that I think we've heard a lot of is in going through an inventory and conditions in the building, a number of varied needs for different types of storage. I guess and I think you touched on this a little bit in your presentation, but do either of these different options provide any unique advantages or disadvantages for how much storage capacity we would be able to have for all of the different departments? I know that you've given some thought to how we can better use some of the storage space and space that's existing in the highway garage now. But any
Mike, if you can
Yeah,
go
I'm
back to
gonna go
the, yeah, okay. So one of the things that, yeah, why don't you go to the black and white plan, please, Mike?
Okay.
That would probably be a little easier to see. Okay, so one of the things that we find with highway garages as well as parks and cemetery and all that, you guys like big storage, okay? And everything comes in on a pallet. We saw the pallets of fertilizers, we saw the pallet of stone, so what you'll see is, here's water and sewer. Primarily what they need is secure storage, and I use that term loosely, because they have smaller component stuff, meters and things like that, they have to, so they're gonna get basically standard racks. We can put in some 4-foot deep racks on pallets and stuff, but they didn't seem to have a lot of palletized stuff. They had more kind of stuff. You'll notice that we have racking all along this wall that we can put as well. That would be for their more palletized things, because they do have some of the heavier valves and stuff that So again, they could put it along this wall if they chose to, but there's not a whole lot because of that. Or they can just line this entire wall with, there's no reason why they couldn't go 3 high. There was a discussion that they are going to get a forklift as well, to run operations, which I think the forklift could be shared by all the organizations. So that is how they would take care of their things. And then they have the mezzanine. So there'd be a forklift ability to lift to the mezzanine, and however they want to put it on pallets, or if they want to put it on racking there. Same thing with highway, they would get a mezzanine stuff. Highway doesn't seem to have a lot of storage needs. They have fluids and stuff, but other than that, they didn't seem to have a lot of storage. If we go on down now, Mike, to Parks. Okay. Parks has all this racking in here. They can park vehicles. They can configure however they want to do. But what we did figure is that they would at least have this wall with pallets 3 high, and then where this jog head, they have this pallet here, and then they can also do pallets here. So they could be a Home Depot based on what I see, and if you get the proper racking and everything, because they're very seasonal parks. Because I think this week was fertilizer, or the throes of fertilizer or something like that. One of the other things too that they had talked about on storage is the like salt and gravel and stuff like that. I guess each department pays for their own gravel and their own sand and stuff. Maybe that could change a little where it's a town operation where they could share, because I guess what it is highway uses their gravel when they need it, water and sewer uses their gravel and sand. And I know that they lend each other, a ton or two now and then, but they did for some reason made an important thing to say, we distinguish. So in that case, what we do is we just put a sand for water and sewer, sand for highway, sand for parks. But those are just those big concrete blocks, so that's not a big to do. And then if they all agree that they can share, that's fine. Because I do know that the sands are different, because like, for example, if you go out there now, you'll see probably a pile of playground sand for like the ball fields and everything that parks put in there, which is a different sand than, say, water and sewer needs and stuff. So that's that. So the only thing that we didn't really get a good sense of, because I guess you have an attic up here that they kind of store, but they warned us not to go up there. So whatever that means is, I don't know what they're doing with record storage per se. They've talked that they're going to go electronic, but again, as we all know, that's been said for the last 10, 15 years that everybody's going electronic. But what, again, on some of these mezzanine areas and stuff, we have seen a lot of the towns share that because, there is no way highway would need this much mezzanine. It's just physically impossible. And if they have that much high, then we should be rethinking this whole project because they currently don't have that. And so if this area had to, say, become record storage for the town operations, and it could be the entire town, not just the people that are in this or the, but like I know that you have payroll records and things like that, and some of them have to be secure and stuff. But that's really easy because you just put them in cages. You don't build walls or anything. You just put secure cages, so that there's no reason why you couldn't store a boatload of records and everything up there. So that's probably the only thing. I just don't know what the immediate record needs are. I do know, Mike, if you can scroll up a little. I do know that they have, probably a dozen lateral files that they seem to be very into. So you notice there's lateral files there, lateral files there, there's files in there and everything else. So we took that into consideration. They seem very happy with the 4 high lateral files. So I believe we've got all the storage, but again, this is something when we sit down with the various user groups, they'll say, this is great or not. Other than I heard about 8 to 10 times they want windows. Everybody, and that's not even an unreasonable request, everybody seemed to have a very realistic and reasonable request of what, I didn't hear anything like, we need to park 700 trucks. And trust me, I've done enough of these. I hear this all the time. You go to Eversource, they need, a 300,000 square foot warehouse, even though they're only in 100 square feet now. So, not a knock against Eversource. They're a great client of ours. We've been working with them for 30 years, so I have no complaint. But I'm saying is your guy, the crews, the groups that we talked to were very reasonable in their request and seemed very accommodating.
Right.
Answer all your questions on storage?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the opportunity to you make efficient use of the volume of the space in addition to just looking at the area of it in plan.
Mm-hmm.
Does the fact that option 1 is a single building as opposed to a standalone option confer an efficiency in being able in enabling the departments to share use of the forklift, for instance, as opposed to having to shuttle it between buildings? Is that
That is very doable, that you could use it between, in the same building, but I've seen people shuttle forklifts all the time between two buildings. Because it's ridiculous to buy two forklifts that are only used once or twice a week, So that's, the biggest thing is, it's just really a matter of sharing those common core things. Like, you only need one locker room.
Right.
But yes, we've tried to move as much mezzanine as we can out there. And like I said, if we can get the garage to fit in there without having to bump up that roof, that's the other thing we'll do. But that's the questionable one. Because when you lift one of those full trucks up, typically we like to have 24-foot clearance, because by the time you have the ducts and everything else, the fact that they have a bridge crane there and they want that bridge crane still in there, because I guess they used it to pick up the plows and stuff, we would put the bridge crane in, and we told them, I wouldn't go over a 2-ton bridge crane. They currently have a 1-ton. And one of the garages, what was it, 10-ton? Because they insisted on lifting a truck fully loaded with sand.
Okay. What you got? Good?
I'm good.
Okay.
All right, so we'll set up the next meeting in 2 weeks.
Well, we can't do that quite yet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Gotta go in order the agenda.
That's fine.
All right, so the next item is to review and discuss upcoming outreach. And we have in our drive the website, right? That is live. I don't know if people had an opportunity to take a look at it, but you can click that link. I know I reviewed it, and Justin, I want to thank you for the work that you put into getting that there. There's a video tour. So Shrewsbury Media Connection, Keith Baldinger and DPW staff filmed a tour of the garages at South Street on August 6th, and we will be shared a copy of the video. We can take a look at it. If you have any comments on it, please send those over to Justin, because Keith is out right now, so that any changes can be made if necessary before that goes live on Shrewsbury Media Connection. Also planning to offer in-person tours of the South Street garages, and those are scheduled for Wednesday, August 21st from 3:30 to 6:30 p.m. And then on Saturday, August 24th from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So the Saturday date coincides with yard waste drop-off day. So if anyone's planning to drop off yard waste at the DPW, they can take an opportunity to go on a brief tour. And as long as, this committee's okay with those dates, if this committee would like to attend, we'll have Justin post as a meeting, so that if, a quorum of us show up, that's okay. But it's certainly not a requirement that we are there. Let's see. We're going to send this out through the town website and social media. And then that's all we have in this right now.
Would you have a sign-up sheet for the tour, so we'd have an idea of how many might come, or is it just gonna be come as you will?
We can, there's only 4 of us.
Right.
I will not be there. I already know that I have a conflict on those dates. So do you think you'd want to be there?
If the people are gonna show up, sure.
Okay.
I can do the 24th.
Beth, my understanding is I'm planning on being there, but we're not going to be the ones doing the tours. They'll
Right,
be
we're
staff.
not doing the
Right.
tour, so.
We'll
So if
just
we
be
were there, Patrick, what are we there for?
Support. Just support.
Just moral support, eye candy?
Yeah, moral support. We can answer any, I'm sure we can answer any questions about progress we've made thus far. Anything that we've discussed in a meeting is fair game.
Right.
Right.
Beth,
So Justin, why don't you post it?
yeah, and the way I envision the committee's involvement is that staff would be leading the tour of folks through the space because they're the most familiar with it, can speak to the operations and the space needs, but that perhaps committee members could wait towards the end of the tour location, and if members had questions about the proposed design, aspects of the project that might be beyond the familiarity of the DPW employees on site, that committee members could answer some of those questions.
Anything but cost.
Yes.
Right, we're not talking about cost.
Right.
We don't know the cost.
We don't know the cost, and we won't know the cost.
Yes. Till September.
One thing I would say about the tours, and this is just something you should consider, okay? You have 2 buildings there, okay? when you walk through your highway, it looks worn and dated, and it has some, warts on it. But overall, you guys have done a decent job of maintaining it. The walls look immaculate. I mean, the masonry looks almost brand new and everything. Most people would probably say, hey, this is not as nice as my house, but it doesn't look that bad. Okay. Your selling point is going to be the water sewer building. And if all you do is take them on the tour of the water sewer building, that would probably be more than adequate. And the only reason I say that is, everybody I've talked to, all our consultants and stuff, we walk through your highway thing, and yes, it's dated, it needs some work. It's not, I mean, the water sewer is just horrendous. Ceilings falling in and everything.
No, I don't
Just something
disagree
to
with
keep
you.
in mind. So if you start them in highway, make sure the tour always ends in water and sewer.
But I think also what's really important to note for people is it's not necessarily what you see in the highway garage, it's what you don't see in the highway garage, right? The fact that the roof needs to be replaced, that the HVAC's at the end of life, that there isn't ventilation, right? Those are the things that you can't see just walking through it, but those are the kinds of costs that if we know we're gonna have to sink that money into a building, we need to look at a building.
Yes.
So I think that it's the message around why we would consider. And I think also the fact that we're renovating that space and not tearing it down speaks to the fact that, you know what, yeah, it really does look great. Was built really well. Again, 1976 was a long time ago. And we need to make sure that the public understands the reason why we would want to do more to the building than just replace the roof and the HVAC if we're going to be in there anyway.
But again, I would just say, start in the highway, finish in water and sewer,
Sure.
if you could do it. I mean, I agree with everything you say, Beth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of infrastructure. People don't get excited about infrastructure.
No, they don't, but I think in Shrewsbury, our taxpayers appreciate when we're looking to spend money in a way that is responsible, right? Like, we understand that this X amount of millions of dollars need to be spent regardless of whether or not we touch that building.
Right.
So the reason why we're saying we need to touch the building is because we want to make sure that when we spend those X dollars, we're going to get 50 years out of it, right? We're not putting a Band-Aid on something. We are fixing it for the future, for the long term. But I agree, water and sewer tells its own story without really having to say anything. It speaks for itself. Pat, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I agree 100%. I think that the voters understand that we do our best to preserve when we can and build new when we have to. And I think we have a long history and a record of doing that responsibly, on budget, and on time.
Great. All right, so I know we're also working on a print piece, and I don't see that in this drive, but I felt like I might have seen it in the drive, but I could just be thinking about that I looked at it someplace else. Was it here at
It
one
was
point?
not in the drive.
Okay, so we are working on a print piece. Keith and I have been working on it that would be able to be sent to town meeting members that outlines just the basics about both buildings, but also the town hall. And we really haven't talked about the town hall, and I know like part of that is because it's not a big construction project, right? It's just we're gonna be moving people out of the second floor, and then there's gonna be kind of that domino effect in this building. So again, there's no need for the elaborate plans and things of that nature, because most of what is needing to be done at town hall is like the fire suppression system, you know, the carpets, the asbestos, that sort of thing.
The windows.
The window, well, yeah. I mean, not stuff you're not changing the footprint of the building, I guess, is the point to be made. So wanting to make sure that piece gets circulated so that the rest of the committee sees it and we can talk about it at the next meeting.
We'll send that out.
Perfect. All right, that brings us to your favorite part, review the next meeting date. So,
No, I just want to make, again, we all agree, and again, you guys have.
Yeah, we wanna
made
keep you
commitment.
on target
It's
for
an aggressive
sure.
schedule, so I just want to make sure that we
no,
all.
100%.
So,
So the next meeting date I am going to propose is August 26th.
That's the Monday 2 weeks out.
No, that's the Monday 2 weeks out. Does that work for people?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
5:30,
Yes. 5:30?
does that work?
I mean, that seems to be the time we go with.
so let's talk about expectations for that. I understand that you were leaning towards option one, but it's still under advisement. We will focus on option one. There'll be some refinements to the site plan, there'll be refinements to the design. We'll have renderings for the building, because ultimately you're gonna want that for your website, and we will have, pricing. I'm gonna say, we will price that, obviously we'll review it with Vertex. I'm not gonna say it was the final price that night, because we'll probably use that final week, depending whatever input and stuff you have. But I'm sure people are gonna wanna ultimately know sometime what this is going to cost, so that's something we will work with. So that's kind of what we're anticipating. I just wanna make sure that meets your expectations.
Right, the other expectation I think we need to talk about is with the date being September 10th, right? That is the deliverable. Probably going to need a meeting the first week in September. So do we want to look at calendars now, understanding that Monday, the 2nd, is Labor Day? Do we want to talk about another night that week? Maybe push it out, I don't know how Thursdays are for people, the 5th of September, to give as much time as possible to try to, because if the 10th is the deadline, you may want another meeting prior to then with the committee.
Right, and I guess, but here, this is one of the things that I guess I'm trying to figure out in my mind is, we are hoping to have the draft report and everything ready for the 26th. With the
Okay.
program and all the packaging in there. Now, there are gonna be some things that are missing, like, if you guys say, you like the option one, even if I release the geotech tomorrow, okay, the chances of that getting done in the next, 2 weeks or 3 weeks are slim to none. So that's gonna just be a blank page and they're saying, we have geotech coming in, We've talked about, the industrial hygienist coming in, and I think Vertex has worked that. The question comes up is tomorrow, when we meet with the town engineer, do they, because Vertex got a quote from, is Ecotech, I think is the name of the company, for the wetlands delineation, do we go with what, Andrew tells us? Or do we want to actually have, and again, I can't really answer now because we meet with him at 3:00 tomorrow. But he might say, yeah, I don't feel comfortable enough, or like, that's just a drainage well. That, a stray, somebody knocked a cattail and there's not really a wetlands. I don't know what he's going to say. So I guess that's the other question. Do we release them immediately or do we let Andrew make that decision? There's no way a topographic survey is going to be done, but I think we have enough information now that it's adequate for, pricing purposes and stuff like that. Those are kind of the big items that are outside of our control on that. So, but our goal would be to have the draft report essentially ready to hand to you on the 26th. You guys are going to need a week to review it or something, and then whether we meet, whether we have comments, whether you just send me comments or however, so that we could basically get the final report to you on the 10th, with the understanding that between the 10th and town meeting, there may be some refinements and adjustments and everything else. That's what I'm anticipating. If I'm wrong, Beth, please tell me I'm wrong. If you're saying on the 10th, it's locked in stone, nothing changes, then we should just be geared for that. But what I'm thinking is you would have draft report on the 26th, final, gives you an opportunity, you send your comments to us where, if you had to call the, draft report, the report for the 10th, you have it in hand and we tweak. I'm not saying it's going to sit for a month or something, but it's like, if we get you the, final revised with all the I's and T's dotted and crossed on the 13th, is that horrible? I mean.
So question that I have, and Pat, maybe you're going to say something that'll answer it. Go ahead.
Well, I would like to weigh in if I could. So in my opinion, we're not in the habit of missing deadlines, so I would plan on the 10th, and going forward, I would focus on what's within your control at this point. And the plan is to, deliver what you're planning on delivering on the 26th. We will then be reviewing that, talking about it, and then the meeting on the 5th, we'll be making recommendations to finalize things in anticipation of having everything ready for the 10th. So that's how I would proceed.
Does anybody know, and I'd have to go back and look, the report on the 10th, Is that going to the select board, or is that coming here? Because there's a select board meeting on the 10th, and I want to say that there was a connection there, but I would have to go back.
That may be the day, are we presenting to the, or is
That's
Vertex
what I'm like,
that day?
that's what I'm wondering. Like, are you is this committee supposed to be presenting to the select board on the 10th?
That's my interpretation of the charge. So
That's
it
what I
says,
thought too.
The committee shall recommend a preferred design concept and budget to the select board no later than September 10th.
Right.
So if we were to review a draft proposal on the 26th, have a meeting the subsequent week on the 5th,
Right.
take a vote at that time to recommend a budget and proposal, then appear before the board.
Then be on the board's agenda on September 10th.
Right, but I think we need to anticipate tweaking it right up until the very last moment.
I definitely want to make sure that a draft is given to the select board
Yes,
the Friday before the meeting, which would be the
Yes,
6th.
yes. but again, we need to, and we will have a deliverable to the select board on the 10th.
Okay. I agree.
So should we plan on the 5th?
I think we should plan on the 5th right now.
Well, I
I
would say
agree.
do it on the 4th, that's a Wednesday, because I know conflicts are always coming up on my Thursdays. And-
Oh, Thursdays are difficult?
Yes, so can we do Wednesday?
I
I
am
don't-
fine with the 4th.
Okay. Justin, you'll just have to find us a room. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if the school committee's in here, but I feel like they might be. I don't know.
We can do it in the parking lot, I'm happy there. I don't mind.
On a Wednesday, yeah.
Maybe not, though. They may be an off week
Off
for
week,
them.
right.
The police station may be available that
Yep.
night too.
Justin will take care of that.
And that would be at 5:30 as well.
Yep.
Okay.
So just to have a clear understanding where we're getting on the 26th, is these layouts with some renderings, some cost data, and an outline of what the cost represents, correct? Like,
It'll be an itemized cost breakdown, and people will pick it in because they'll say, oh, you carried, $10,000 for toilet partitions. Well, that's ridiculous, and you don't need 40 hours to put in toilet partitions. So we know, that's the breakdown we will give you. So I guess the question is, when you're asking me, it will all be itemized. We would do an executive summary of kind of the overview, but as far as, I'm not going to explain to you that the toilet partitions are estimated at
Correct.
10,000.
no,
Correct.
no. This is conceptual, remember? Conceptual, estimating,
Correct.
not down to the toilet petition types and colors.
And again, the budget nitty gritty will ultimately be handled by the OPM and the construction team when they are put in place.
Correct.
Okay, so we probably do our estimates differently. I count toilet partitions, I count light fixtures and everything at the concept, because it's amazing how quickly they add up overnight. So, because otherwise I could give you a square footage cost and say it's X number of dollars a square foot for the main building, a new building, it's X number of dollars proposed for the renovation. The only problem is that those never work out perfectly well, because in the breakdowns, you're saying, so it's $600 a square foot, but how does that break down? Well, that may break down to, there's $1 million in the site work, there's, 5 million, and so we will itemize it and we'll package it any way you want. But the only way I know that I can give you a realistic estimate is to count toilet partitions and everything.
Matt, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think that's, that exercise is good for, working towards something that is realistic and that we think that will stick. And we will, review that number together once you've prepared the concept estimate, Greg. I think that's, if it has the opportunity to be advanced for a concept-phased estimate, I think that only helps us.
Well, again, I
Yeah.
just find there's all sorts of crazy things that creep in, like the phasing, like the electrical, like the overhead and stuff.
So, okay, I think we're getting like ahead of ourselves at this point. And I think it's important to have, I think we've got everything, I think you have everything you need to kind of come to us on the 26th with the draft, right? You're going to work with Vertex. You guys are gonna do the exercise of running numbers. Keith will be back in the office, so you'll be able to work with Keith, right? Prepare something so that we have it well in advance of the meeting. It was a little difficult to work off of this screen and not have the presentation beforehand. So in the future, it would be really helpful if we had something a couple of days before the meeting. I know that, just with jobs and things, it's a little bit easier with this being on a Monday, if we can get something like the Friday before so that we have it to review. And then I think that, you're gonna work on the estimate. We should be set to go.
And do it your way, whatever way you want to do it.
Right. You guys work it out.
The way you normally do it.
We have 2 weeks.
Yep.
We work the weekends, we work Monday. I mean, I appreciate you wanting to review it on Friday, but that's 2 days of work that can be done. I mean, this is an incredibly aggressive schedule. We've signed up to it and we've agreed to it. I'm not, but I'm just saying, we have 2 weeks now to get this pulled together. And so I'm saying, the odds of me getting this to you on Friday before the Monday meeting are slim to none.
Monday morning?
Even Monday by noon,
We
something
will
like
try
that,
to-
just
yeah.
beforehand, so we have a chance to review it.
Just a chance to look it over would be really helpful.
We will try to.
Or
get
at
it
least
as
just
early
so that we have it in our drive, so that we have it in front of us,
Sure.
like seeing it over there is not easy. I was trying to bring it up on my
Right.
phone so that I could watch it on Shrewsbury Media Connection so that I could see it better. I'd love to have a copy, so that we have that in our drive. But again, I think rather than getting hung up on the minutia of it, I think that's why we hired
You too.
Vertex and you figure out getting us what we need to make a decision and vote on the 26th. And then we have September 4th to clean it up and make sure that we're ready to go to the select board on September 10th.
Okay.
And then we can make any tweaks that are necessary from there. We're not expecting it to be the end product, right? We understand the timeline is very tight.
Okay.
Yeah. Good? All right. Any other questions?
Good.
Okay. Pat, what do you think?
I'm good.
Okay. So is
I'm
there
going
any
out for
other
ice cream.
business?
I'm going for ice cream with my family. How do you
Okay.
like that?
That's what I figured. I heard voices. So let me get a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Mr. Liberty.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Walsh.
I vote to adjourn.
Okay. Mr. Pitney.
Yes,
Okay. And myself, aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you and good night.
thank you.